Gautam bhai, coming to the YPO format, which is Q&A, we've received overwhelming number of questions, and I've tried to summarize into a few. But the one question which outnumbers the rest is something to do with Preeti Bhavi. Not much is known about Dr. Preeti Adani, your better half, Dr. Preeti Adani. We'd love to know more what role she has played in both your personal and professional lives. And on a really broader note, you talk so much about family and family values. We'd like to define what Adani family means to you.
Thank you, Rohit. See, as I spoke, and now you come to know that I am a 10th pass college dropout, whereas Preeti is a qualified medical practitioner. She is a doctor. She took the bold decisions to marry me despite being much more qualified than me. After marriage, she realized very soon that I had the dream, the potential, and the ambition to grow. She supported me and encouraged me to chase my dreams and sacrifice our own medical career and to take care of our joint family and our children. Her sacrifices are monumental, and the list is endless. After our children had grown up, knowing her potentials, I requested her to take up the responsibility of the Adani Foundation and help the Adani Group. The foundation has done some phenomenal work over the past decade and touching the lives of our millions under her inspiring leadership. What is truly remarkable for her that she does her work very silently and without seeking the limelight. If you ask me, the most important reason for my success, I will point to Preeti. I would also give full credit to my wife for inculcating those strong values in my children too. And I am thankful to God for giving me such a wonderful life partner. While many of you see us as a rich family, we are actually a typical middle class Indian joint family in terms of our lifestyles and its values. For me, my nephew Pranav and Sagar are as dear as my son Karan and Jeet. All four of them have received equal love, affections, and reprimand from me. I love to spend time with my granddaughters. They are my biggest stress reliever. I have only two worlds, work and a family. And for me, family is a great source of strength.
Incredible answer, Gautam bhai. And now from family structure to infrastructure. Gautam bhai, globally, if you see, infrastructure is built by governments. But in India, you are the infrastructure man, infrastructure king. And you've created projects of scale and size never witnessed in Indian history. Plus, in this sector, very few have succeeded. And that's why we want to ask you, and this is a question from many, that what is the magic mantra you have?
See, it's not a magic mantra, Rohit. Anyway, it's a very good question. I would like to elaborate. See, in my mind, infra development is the most challenging business. And not only in India, but you go any part of the world. And let me explain this in an Indian context. In my personal experience of last 30 years, I found major four issues in an infrastructure business where most of even very good infrastructure company failed. Number one, all our bidding documents or concession agreement, what government has made is absolutely one-sided and lofted entire risk to the developer. And because of this, if you really see that no global banks are ready to fund any infra project at that project levels. They don't mind to give money at a corporate level, but while giving into the project, they never have a comfortable with these documents. I've also seen that government reforms, I don't see it is a planned manner. What does it mean, planned manner? Means that you can decide today how I have to take my country on this particular sectors for next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And you make reforms accordingly. Most of our reforms happens when we push to the wall and when we don't have any options, then basically you make the reforms. And that all reforms, if half-hearted, they have not basically pushed through. Like just I am giving example in a power sectors. When Enron debacle happens, in 10, 12, 15 years, no investment came into the power sectors. And power becomes so scarce commodity, even I have seen the Chief Minister of the state be outside on the Power Secretary Government of India to allocating 100 megawatt. And that situation led to amend the Electricity Act. And it was in 2003 and 2006 they have come out with the regulations. But in that basically reforms, they have done reforms at a generating levels and not basically allowing reforms at a distribution level. So they have not cleaned up the whole pipeline. They have kept partial pipeline clean, partial pipeline chopped. So 2006-07 bidding started. Many entrepreneurs has bidded and basically entered into this power sector. Bank was also supporting. But when basically all this power project has come up in 2012 to 2017, most of basically power projects struggled, and struggled mainly because there is no money available to discoms, and they always basically start making the disputes. So this is a problem in every sector. I will not say that government is not trying to improve. They are continuously trying to improve, and we are improving. But this is our mindset, that we are not basically making a planned reforms. Second is the banking systems. When global banks is not supporting you, so you have to depend on only the Indian banks. And Indian banks also, if you really see private banks, they hardly have a risk appetite to basically fund heavily on the infrastructures. So you have left with the public sector banks. Now, public sector banks also have their own problems of a working as well as asset liability mismatch. And with that, they only funding for 8 to 12 years. Now, when developers are developing any project with an asset life of 30, 40 years and concessions or power purchase agreement for 30 years, they always fix the tariff with a visualization that their depreciation will be 3.33% and to be adjusted in 30 years. So 3.33% will be the repayment to the lenders. But when you got the finance for 10 years, the bank is sucking your money at 10% level. So what's happened with that? That in your balance sheets, you have a profit, but at a cash flow levels, you are completely dried up. Now, any entrepreneur, when they see the profit on balance sheets and some money bankers are giving from one pocket to another pocket, every entrepreneur is always aspiring to grow. And they continue to grow without seeing where they lead to. And then came, if you really see 2010 to 2012, huge banking system money has been plowed into the infrastructure. And infrastructure then after that struggled. And huge amount has become NPA at the banking system. In 2004, NDA government came. And they realized that this is like a time bomb. And they come out with a bankruptcy code, NCLT, and lot of basically governance and other issues that led to basically many business houses get into the problems. I will not say that entire fault is them. They are definitely ambitions, aspiring to basically grow. They have built assets, but basically they have never basically seen the cash flow managements. And they have basically seen this document, basically they feel that they will manage the government or systems. Now that management stopped. And with that, basically they get into this problems on financially. Third thing is coming of our regulators. See, I have seen that unless you have a very professionals, independent and empowered regulators, you can't grow the sectors. In most of the time, government appoint retired babu. It is okay if you are basically appointing retired babu, but unless it is not qualifying professionally and you are not making them independent and empowered, you are not achieving the objectives. And with that, none of basically regulator orders is accepted either by the government or government agency or by the private developers. Every order basically get into the challenge. It went to tribunals And once you challenge at a one level, there is no stoppage. Basically, it has to be land up into the Supreme Court. And when you enter into the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court also basically flooded with so many other matters. Just was one example of this regulatory thing is in a telecom sectors. 2002, the issues, and it was an interpretation issue and will settle in 2019 by the Supreme Court. And during that period, this 5,000 crore problem become 50,000 crore problem. Now, once you have a so large problem, anyone cannot basically resolve. And that basically affect any entrepreneurs. Because then basically liability becomes so huge that, so that is basically third problems of regulator and that empowerment and independence. So these are basically the major issues. And if you see the company like L&T, yeah, which is basically, I see is the best basically construction and infra company was. But infrastructure level, they completely get out. They basically sold all road assets, 2 ports basically they sold to us. Still Hyderabad Metro is struggling, Punjab Power Plant is struggling. Means company like L&T, they decided to completely get out of the infra project and to only restrict themselves only on construction and EPC things. So these are the basically situation. We have to basically, government is aware about all these things. They are also trying to basically improve whatever things is required. We hope that basically 2000 new election, new government will take it much basically faster reforms on basically how to get long-term fundings on infra and all these things. And this, because of these 3 structural problems, even great infra companies in India either could not survive or decided to exit the sectors. So naturally, logical question is, how did I overcome these problems? So what basically we have done in 2012 and 13, I realized these problems. And this was a structural bottlenecks in our infrastructure financing within the Indian banking system. So as a part of our long-term financial strategy, we decided to leverage Indian banking systems, mainly during the construction period. And once the project is completed, we refinance is through long-term international funds. And I understood that to avail this international financing, you required a good ratings, which is very essential. And to get the good ratings, I tightened disclosure as well as our governance standards and benchmark it to the international standards. And as a result, 9 out of our 10 companies today secured highest sovereign ratings. And that helped me to increase the exposure from Indian financial institutions to the global market. And in the past decade, the leading of our Indian banks to our companies, which has come down from earlier it was 86% to come down to now just 29%. And today, we have a very balanced portfolios, which have a 29% from our domestic banks, 30% is from the global banks, and 34% around is through global bond markets. The main issue that basically I have shifted basically our financial balancing portfolio to de-risk basically entirely completely dependent on the Indian bank, Indian market. At the same time, Indian market also basically very important because at a construction funding level, naturally you require Indian bank, because at the construction level you will not get basically the good rating. So once you have constructed your basically project and you get the good rating, then you move to basically the global market and deleverage Indian banks.
He is numbers in his head, and I think this is what he breathes. I think numbers, execution, and infrastructure. And that just tells me, Gautam bhai, you know, Mundra is your karma bhumi, and you began your journey there. And very simplistically, what are one or two most important reasons why Mundra succeeded?
The most defining characteristic of Mundra is that it is the first port, is a conceived, designed, and developed by the user. See, I was doing a global trading and operating at almost all government ports in India. And as a user, I realized what are the problems and challenges to either to export or to import, take out your cargo of imports. The corruptions, delay, damages, pilferage, and malpractices. So as a user, I understand you require philanthropy of basically logistics organization within your organization to handle all these things. So I use all my first-hand experience of this journey. And let me share with you, there are three unique aspects in Mundra's success. First, Mundra port management is giving a full service to users. They just have to hand over the documents, and is a single price. Any damages, pilferage, or slippage about their cargo, entire port is taking the responsibility. So mentally, the users of the port is become a tension-free, and we give only one consolidated charge, and all other services we manage. If you go to Mumbai ports or other ports, you have to deal with 4 or 5 agencies to make sure that your cargo, you are getting imports, get out of it, or basically you are getting exports. And this, assuming we are charging 500 rupees per ton, and this 500 rupees in these 5 agencies, they basically split 100 rupees, 50 rupees. In this basically case, our entire 500 rupees coming to Mundra ports. We have a 70% of EBITDA levels. So out of 500, we are having a 350 rupees is a margin. So what I have done, at the 5th, 6th level of our marketing managers, I empowered him that if he has to get basically like a cargo of Mr. Goenkaji, he will basically sit, whatever basically he wants, 50 rupees plus, minus, everything, but he will basically make the deal. And in the government ports, even chairman doesn't have 5 rupees power. So now you can understand that basically our 6th level of marketing manager is more powerful to give the consumer-centric service than basically any major port. And that lead, that you have to first understand the consumer, what it needs. So unless you make it a consumer-centric approach, you can't grow. And with that, within 10 years, Mundra port become country largest port, surpassing all major port, even which has been built 50, 100 years back. And in our situations, even government has not basically put even single rupees even to build roads, railway, airport, everything has been built by, and still it is a viable and most profitable. Second, we continuously build the assets and adding the berth. So we never basically see any Excel sheet approach. Sometimes basically our CFO say basically this required or not. No, you continuously build. We have faith on India's growth story, and forget about basically all other things. You continue to build, everything will fall. And third thing, I build basically asset is a world class, where basically ships, even though today is on the drawing board, which is going to be work for next 30 years, that also can be birth at basically Mundra. So mechanizations and basically the deep draft and other things basically I built that basically it can take care of basically next 50 years of requirement. So fundamentally these three aspect point of view. See, many of you have seen basically Mundra port, you have seen basically Mumbai port. You will see many ships basically in Mumbai harbors. In Mundra you will not see. Because I basically make a philosophy that my berth has to wait for the ships and never ship has to wait for the berth. So that is a fundamental basically change.
Gautam bhai, I think you answered the question on debt, which many people keep raising about you. And there were two questions, so I'm just mixing it both together. Adani has been labeled as the house of debt earlier, not today, but earlier. And that was also one of the reasons why Hindenburg used that perception to attack you, wreak havoc. Do you think Hindenburg was the largest ever attack on an Indian corporate or a global corporate? And very frankly, we want to know, how was your first 7 days? You know, I was there on 24th Jan with you, but you couldn't grapple this. But the next 7 days, how did you spend? And how did you attack it? How do you defeat it? And finally, what were the one or two learnings all of us can take back from it?
Rohit is too formal. Even today also people are talking about our day. So it is not just past, even today also. See, your question has 4 parts. I will try to give combined answer. But you are right. The Hindenburg attack on Adani was the world's biggest attack on a corporate history. I also have no hesitations in saying that this attack was a unique two-dimensional attack compared to typically short seller attack. This attack on us is not only played out in the financial market, but also played out in a political theater. And this Adani Group, basically, this Hindenburg attack, I have seen basically many financial attacks, but it has never happened that along with the financial attack, you start also political attack and both working in symphony. Both played out in conjunctions and complementing and reinforcing each other, and ably supported by the section of media, both in India and abroad. As far as my first reaction was concerned, when the news first came, I could see that the published material was old allegations which had been recycled in a different way. such attacks were not new. And I felt that like many other earlier attacks, these too will pass quickly. In fact, it was business as usual. I remembered vividly that on the 25th and 26th of January, I attended weddings in Mumbai and one of my friends in Bhopal. On the very next day, I called on the President of Egypt. Right after that, I went to Israel and met Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu to formally take over the port of Haifa. I have to admit that initially we grossly underestimated the impact of this report. However, we soon understood the conspiracy and its depth. With no precedents to handle a crisis of this nature and its magnitude, we evolved our own contrast strategy to handle it, and the rest, as they say, is a history. Now, to answer your third questions, how did we handle it? There were even several steps we undertook. First, on a completion of our FPO, where SEBI has cleared, and it was a country largest FPO, 20,000 crores. We returned the FPO proceeds only on the moral grounds that my investors should not lose money even on the first day of the investment. Second, what I have done, created a strong war chest of a cash of rupees 70,000 crores. We prepared almost 18,000 crores of our margin-linked financing, which basically keep market volatile. And fourth, I insulated my CEOs and executives from this noise. I told them that you tighten your belt and focus on your operations and growth. With this, we maintain the growth momentum and continue with the expansions and new projects like Khavda, Dharavi, copper smelters, PVC. So we continue to create our growth story. We created a war room and answered all questions and queries coming from media, SEBI, and many other quarters. We make sure that every query has been answered basically well in time in 24 hours. Then we executed an extensive engagement program with all our stakeholders. While we can talk about learnings out of this, while learnings can be many, but two key takeaways of this attack, that the most important, cash is king. And second, the importance of engagement and a strong communications with all stakeholders. Our biggest learning was that doing a good job is not enough. We must tell our story too. We need to communicate more and to communicate timely and more effectively. I would also like to conclude by sharing that in this whole Hindenburg episodes, what pained me is most was that many retail shareholders, they lost their money. I never basically have pain from Adani family standpoint of view, because we never be in the market of buying and selling of the shares. And we know about basically our future plans. We know about basically our internal things. So there was never basically wealth erosion point of view I have disturbed from Adani family standpoint of view, but definitely I have a lot of pain that my small and marginal shareholders lost their money because they don't have a margin to pay and all that. And there never was any truth in all these allegations. And this was ultimately validated and validated by the Supreme Court and even the markets. Capital market basically regained whatever basically we lost. But I can tell you, we are financially very strong and secured. If you really see on the question about your date, see 10 years back, see very typically any infra company will develop at a 70-30 debt equity ratios. And today basically our debt is 40% and equity is 60%. Number two, our debt to EBITDA level, which was 10 years back, it was a 7.5. And when Hindenburg attack happens, it was 3.25%, which was a very, very comfortable. But I have decided to bring it to 2.5 and we basically brought in 2.5. So, and that's how basically I am saying is the cash is king. And basically how to deleverage and basically continues to also focus on a growth. So today, we are continuously growing. We are basically taking the debt, but our EBITDA level increasing double, then basically the percentage of debt is increasing. So every time basically we are deleveraging ourselves. The good part basically I learned in the whole things, the rating agencies. Because rating agencies and my lenders, they never perturbed. Because such kind of attacks when it's happened, immediately the rating agency will downgrade you 3, 4, 5 notch. And with that, you have to continue to make a repayment and you will not get the new finances. And that will basically start depleting your basically the companies. And in most of the cases it happened. In our case, we have 49 companies which has been rated, and by 7 rating agency and 3 is the international rating agencies, Fitch, Moody and S&P. And none of our company has downgraded even single notch or not even put basically on even watch list. That itself shows that how financially strong the every company is, as well as they believe in our disclosure things. Otherwise, immediately they will downgrade you. And we have seen basically after Hindenburg report, basically they have attack on basically American banks also, and then basically it start falling. So financially, on a date and all other things, it was a very, very, I can say, our detractors and other things is very, very purposefully. This has been continuously feed to the market. And even I can basically, even during Hindenburg, my lenders stood me very firm and continuously they supported us on our growth. So we never basically have that challenges.
Outstanding, Gautam bhai. What only a man with your gut can put up this fight. But of course, Hindenburg made the Adani name famous overnight, globally. Of course, not for the right reasons for some time. But we know that the Adani name behind each company and behind it's the corporate recognition for you. What are your thoughts? Like some people may consider, using the name, there's risk attached, but you are vehemently supportive of this. What are your thoughts, Gautam bhai, on this?
It is a very loaded question, but let me attempt to answer. See, at the outset, I must mention that using my own name for the company also brings not only sense of pride, but also a huge responsibility. And it is not only for me, but also for the coming generations. It provides a strong bond between the employees and the promoters. And it is a unifying force which makes the Adani Group one strong Adani family. And in the larger context, while it is true that Gautam Adani, myself, is the founder of the Adani Group, today the group is bigger than any individual. And today, Adani is more than a name or a brand. Adani is a way of culture. It is a philosophy. And it is a way of thinking. To our family of employees who call them as Adanians, it represents our ability to think big and take a risk. It is also a can-do attitude, which is reflected in our recent campaign, हम करके दिखाते हैं. We believe in the simplicity, while we take pride in what we do. We believe in being modest about what we achieve. In many ways, the Adani Group's culture is also a middle class. It is aspirational. It is hungry. And yet, it is committed to contribute to the India's growth story. And it is a law-abiding. In many ways, Adani has influenced the larger working culture in the infrastructure sector. The chalta hai attitudes of development in infra space with a huge time and cost overruns is being replaced by a new sense of purpose and urgency. To use in a cricket analogy, the Adani Group has influenced the infrastructure sector in the same way as T20 has affected the Test cricket. And I'm sure you all remember Shah Rukh Khan's famous line, "My name is Khan, I am not a terrorist." Let me conclude my answer by modifying, my name is Adani, and I am a humble Indian infra company, and I am proud of it.
That's right. Amazing. Gautam bhai, I don't know what words to say, but I'm now coming to a little controversial question, and that has to do with Bombay. And you know, actually, your influence in Bombay is the highest amongst any other businessman. You control and operate Bombay Airport, the Navi Mumbai Airport you're building, Dharavi, 1 million people getting rehabilitated, electricity to half of Mumbai, so much of real estate. Yet, you are considered an outsider by a section of Bombay Club, the so-called Bombay Club, and the section, I'm saying just a section, you faced huge criticism. You faced massive backlash from some of these sections. So how do you perceive this unjust treatment?
See, Mumbai is my second home. And I would not agree that I am an outsider here. In Mumbai, I think no one is an outsider, because Mumbai welcomes each and everyone with open arms. And talking about Mumbai, I feel proud and privileged that I have given this opportunity even to develop Dharavi redevelopments. Among all the projects being undertaken by our group, Dharavi is the dearest and nearest to my heart. And Dharavi, for me, is not just a project to make money, but an opportunity to give back and be a part of a historic and the biggest human-centric transformations ever seen in this planet. It is true that resettlement and rehabilitations of million people is very challenging. However, I would like to assure that we are doing to transform Dharavi into the state-of-the-art, world-class habitations that will reflect the true character of Mumbai, the spirit, unity in diversity, color and determinations, without losing and timeless essence of the old Dharavi. I consider it my responsibility to transform the lives of million people and create a new Dharavi of dignity, safety, and inclusiveness. we have adopted the same approach of excellence wrapped in tradition at our Navi Mumbai 2, where we are building what will be India's finest international airport. When we complete this and the development of Dharavi, you will see what I mean. I also want to say that this welcoming culture is the beauty of India. We do business in almost all states. And wherever I go, I always feel at home. Whether it is in Mundra, in Gujarat, or Goda in Jharkhand, or Sarguja in Chhattisgarh, and from Varanasi to Virinjams, and Dahej to Dhamra, I always feel welcome. There is no sense of being an outsider anywhere in India. I hope that I answer your question.
Absolutely, Gautam Bhai. The rehabilitation of Dharavi is, I think 35 countries in the world has less population than Dharavi. So what you are doing is remarkable. And just a final one question, Gautam Bhai, before we move to the rapid fire, is it's no secret that you faced highest boxes, highest brunt as an industrialist. And how has it personally impacted you, changed you?
I am very conscious of the fact that as a first generation entrepreneur, I will always be targeted. In a life, you have to decide whether to take a softer option and a play victim, or accept the challenges and move on. I accepted the challenge. I knew that I will have to do more than everyone else and perform 2 times better than everyone else, because I will have to constantly prove myself. That is the challenge of being a first generation entrepreneur. These attacks have only changed me for the better. I have used each one of them for introspections and as an opportunity to improve myself without being bitter about what happened.